6:30, and I'll call this meeting to order. First order of business, approval of the minutes of October 27th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Do we have any? None? Okay, we'll move forward from there. New business items. First item is review the powers and duties of the Parks and Recreations Advisory Board as defined by City Code.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Lavery with Parks and Recreation. This is an item, if you go back a few pages, there is in your package that says Division 10. That is from the city ordinances, the Code of City Ordinances, that details the powers, specifically the powers and duties as in the last item there. We've looked at this before, but we have some new members of the board. I just wanted to revisit because as we discussed last time, it seems a little bit out of date. The board is currently meeting quarterly, which is, you know, if you read it there, I'll read it out. I'll read the whole thing out loud, and then you can discuss. The Parks and Recreation Board shall consult with and advise the city manager and other municipal officers regarding the physical condition of, improvements on, and beautification of the public parks and playgrounds, shall serve in an advisory capacity in connection with all public parks, parkways, playgrounds, athletic fields, bathing beaches, and all other property owned or controlled by the city and used for public purposes, shall make recommendations regarding the development of city property as public parks and playgrounds, and shall submit reports to the City Commission regarding their recommendations. So this item is for the board to discuss the role as defined in the ordinances, and if that needs to be updated, or if you would like to submit, and the process for updating that would be the board would submit recommendations to council for updating this ordinance.
Any comments at the moment?
And I guess I could add that when we're meeting quarterly, if you're reporting conditions in parks, it's not, you know, I'm going to hear about it 2 months before we have another meeting, and so it just seemed a little bit outdated. Just wanted to see if the board had a desire to be more involved in things like the planning process, or we do have a master plan coming up, which the board will certainly be involved in. We will be asking you, and may have special meetings or other things like that with the board. Yeah, just your thoughts or any discussion on the powers and duties of the board, if anybody has any thoughts.
I've always had the concern that, especially with the year that we just had, where COVID affected how we met and almost prevented us meeting because of certain situations, and at the end of the day, the Parks Department still handled the situation. I think amazing. I mean, the City of Clearwater has done great work to keep the Parks and Rec Department going. As far as us being an advisory board and connecting, basically being the voice of citizens, it definitely would be preferred that we did meet or at least use technology or find a better way to respond quicker and be able to discuss items and be more proactive, and then instead of reactive after several months, because since we do meet every quarter, if one of us, I know I've missed one, and then it's 6 months before we can meet again and discuss. So in this day and age, especially with the digital day and age, I think it would behoove us to move forward in a way where we can respond and communicate and interact much more quickly and adapt to the situations that we have, especially like last year where we had to go remote at the last minute, and we didn't expect that too much, and everyone had to do their logistics to kind of figure that out. So imagine the citizens who would like to make comments and be heard and find out what's going on and have us discuss things. It'd be great to be able to respond quickly.
Okay. If I can add one more thing here, and with all respect to the board, it would be great to have more input from the board members in terms of setting the agenda. There's one agenda item here that was added at the request of the board, and everything else was added by either the city clerk's office or myself. So Mr. Raftery had requested the landings item. So a little more, I don't want to say engagement, because you're certainly engaged. Mm-hmm. Yes, please go ahead.
Well, no, I think that the issue is more of the frequency that we meet. I don't think the duties and the powers is the issue. I think it's the frequency, and if we do meet more often, we will become more engaged and know what's going on. But and no fault to the department, but it's hard to be engaged when we meet on a quarterly basis. And I think that's one issue Councilman Beckmann brought up at one of the council meetings previously, is the frequency that some of the boards meet. And I would agree with that, because it's hard to be engaged or for council to hear our feedback if we're not meeting frequently.
Yes.
If I could just point out that the very next item is
Yeah.
to talk about meeting frequency. So I believe if the board wanted to move on from this item to the next one and perhaps make a motion there, that would be acceptable.
Do you have residents who want to be heard on this item?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, would you like
Yes.
to ask if there are residents that would like to?
Residents like to be heard on this item, please. State your name, please.
So thank you. My name is Kathleen Beckmann. I am a resident of Clearwater as well as your city council member. And it's interesting because I think we need to be collaborating. We're on the same team. And when we look at the job description here, I should know all of your faces, you should know who I am, and we should be engaging really fairly regularly. So your job as a board shall consult with and advise the city manager and other municipal officers regarding all these things. That's me. And so I want to work with you. I am here for you. This board, the Park District Advisory Board, as well as the Environmental Advisory Board, are two of my favorite boards that I think you touch lives every single day of our residents. And you have a very important role to play, and you have great opportunity. So you need to operate, it says here, in an advisory capacity in connection with all public parks, playgrounds, etc., and you shall make recommendations regarding the development of city property. That means Imagine Clearwater. That means the landings. You should have been involved in that. You should be making recommendations to me. I would hope what they care about. Do you know that we have cut $25 million from our Imagine Clearwater project, and a lot of that affects the park? I need to know what you feel about that. You need to be out talking to residents and coming to me and telling me what they feel about that. I'm out there engaging them, but you all are like little fingers that can reach out to other parts of the city. So I wanted to start by saying thank you for your service. The Parks and Rec Department has a budget of over $31 million, second only to the police department. This department oversees the Phillies, Coachman Park, Imagine Clearwater, rec centers, open fields, ball fields, our places where people enjoy art and nature and dance in our rec centers. They learn about hair weaving and meditation. There are party rentals, summer camps, personal training. We have an Olympic-sized pool, walking trails. We have a collection of resources and amenities that we should all be so proud of. I'm very proud of. And they are truly to be valued and protected. And while we absolutely have and appreciate sports tourism and league rentals, our park assets should be here primarily for our residents. And I think that's what you all, as residents of our city, need to be doing, is representing their voice. So I challenge you to take this position and really do some positive things. When you think about your duties, when you think about how frequently you want to meet, you are here for the residents. You were appointed to collaborate with me and other city council members to work in conjunction. So I need to hear from you. I am available all the time. I'm waiting to hear from you. I need to hear from you. And then I have residents reaching out to me all the time. Hopefully they're reaching out to you. I have people in Lake Bellevue who look at the lake there that's a 30-acre lake, natural spring-fed lake, and they have ideas about having an educational component with Ross Norton Rec Center, where we kind of have STEM education associated with Lake Bellevue. That's a phenomenal thing. People are asking about maybe a boardwalk there at Lake Bellevue. We have the Plum House that is going to be this musical nonprofit that's going to be doing music and art in that building, that old Victorian building. And wouldn't it be nice to have concerts out in that area, in that park? People in that neighborhood, and I know this right now because I just did a cleanup a couple weeks ago, but you know, that lake there You can sit and face west and see a beautiful sunset. You don't have to drive all the way out to the beach and pay, a bunch of money to park. But maybe we want to have some benches and seats there where they can sit and enjoy a nice sunset at that, at that park. So anyway, also, I would say, you guys don't have me on a timer, and I'm the only one here, but
That's okay, it's your
here
time.
are a couple of things that I'm wondering, and I did not know that our wonderful director, Mr. Halios, was going to be here, but he and I have a meeting set up later this week, because I had some questions, and these are questions I think you should, not to be presumptive, but you should know too, is like, how are the hours of operation set at each facility? Does each facility director have his or her own budget? Is it the same budget? Who determines what that budget is and what it can be spent on? Is there equity between facilities? One thing I've noticed is that oftentimes if I'm driving around on the weekends and a rec center isn't open, I'm like, wow, that's the time when families are home. People have the weekends off. Perhaps we should have these rec centers open more when families can use them. Perhaps we should, have nighttime basketball leagues for our teens or something like that. How can we really be creative? And then the other thing is, are we giving programs an adequate amount of time to develop? It's like, well, we offered it and only 3 people showed up. Well, did we do enough to really build it? Do we go out and walk a perimeter around that rec center or facility or wherever that activity is scheduled and really tell the residents about it? Like, hey, the pool's going to be open at noon on Sunday. You guys might want to come on down. It takes intentional effort, and that's what I'm about. I hope that you, as people who love the parks, I hope you are in the parks, engaging in the parks. I hope you represent a wide swath of our diverse city, but you've got important work to do, and I am here to help you. And I would advocate for, a more frequent meeting than quarterly. I know the Environmental Advisory Board is thinking about, 6 meetings a year. But anyway, that's what I have to speak about. So, yeah, that's what I've got. So, thanks for listening.
Thank you for your time and for great words, and I agree. Like she's saying, I will put this upon myself in the last year and a half, or the time that I've been part of this board, that it's been an education process for me. I've never been on a board. I've never been a chair before, so it's been a kind of a high learning curve for me. And in the last several months, I've been trying to change that, and that's why I want to be, like you said, get more engaged. So I need to know more about the parks. It's almost like this is our house, this is my house. I don't want to be an uncle just visiting. So I've been making an effort to go to every single park. I'll take a walk in the morning. I'll bring my mother so she can exercise. To know every single part of the park, meet people there, and like Ms. Beckmann said, to understand what we have and the value of it, and be more receptive to it, more perceptive to it. So I agree with all of that, and thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if we're good, we can move over to, I guess, discussing the frequency. I don't have a problem meeting monthly if that need be, because for me, after 89 days, now I have to kind of reset and think about a lot of other, whereas it was every couple of weeks, I can do 2 weeks. Life happens, just like for all of us. And a couple of weeks, then I can dive back into it and kind of reset, to be prepared a week before to be here and be more engaged, because that's definitely what my goal is as far as being a citizen here. I've been here 10 years. I've never loved this city more. This is amazing. And I'm from Brooklyn. I grew up playing basketball at night, midnight basketball. It was safer to hang out playing basketball than have places closed where the lights go off and now I got to hang out with my friends in a corner. Like, how about we just keep running around for the next 6 hours? So, being in IT, I also believe we should find open source ways to be more creative and to help the citizens be more engaged. It's a digital society we live in now, so I'm fully open to hearing all kinds of opportunities and just ideas from everyone. I appreciate your time, though.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see the board meet more frequently, and I'd like to see the board be more involved and engaged, as Mr. Lavery was talking about. I think that's on us to do that. It's on us to lead that. And I polled today or actually a month or so ago, but I pulled the master plan from 2013, and a lot of that's been done, and it's going to need to be updated here soon. We're about at the end of the 10 years. But there's so much opportunity, as Councilwoman Beckmann was talking about, for us to really dive deep in, not just into our parks and recreation assets, but to dive deep into the community and to get feedback. I was a candidate for council, and I had the opportunity, like Councilwoman Beckmann, to knock on a lot of doors and hear a lot about our parks. And it's time for me and others who are all engaged in the community in different ways to share some of that feedback that we've learned from walking it. I remember I was in one neighborhood, and a father talked to me. He had a daughter who was about 7 or 8, and he said, she can't walk to a park or a recreation center within walking distance of our home. There's just nothing, there's nowhere for her to go recreate on foot, just to go with her friends and just play in a park or a playground. And do we have great parks in Clearwater? Absolutely. I see parks all over the country in the work that I do, and we have great parks here. And I use them a lot. I used, Councilwoman Beckmann was talking about Lake Bellevue. When the beach was closed, I was down there almost every day at that park. It's a great park, and I met some of the folks who are the friends of the park down there, and they talked about plans they had, and I think that would be a key to us, not just meeting more often. I think would help us work together to engage the community more, to engage these friends of the park. With the Beach Association, I know they've got two parks out there they adopt and they clean, and they're very engaged in those parks in their neighborhoods. I think meeting more often would help us work together to engage our neighborhood groups more, and so I would at least like to see us meet 6 times a year. But certainly for a period of time monthly would be even better, I think.
And I'm open to having 2 more, so we could try meeting monthly. If that's too much, we could pare it back a little bit. You think we can do that? Is that allowable or under the
And does
charter?
this board set the frequency, or is that something the council has to do?
Yeah, so what this would be a motion to ask council to change the frequency of the boards, because it will require, actually, no, I don't believe it requires an ordinance change, but because it doesn't say, we just had to read the ordinance, it doesn't have the frequency in it. But council would make the change. So this would be a request from the board to council. So in your discussion now, you can make a motion to and discuss and decide on a frequency you'd like to meet, and then the motion would go to council with your request on it.
Well, I would make a motion then to go to to ask council if we can go to a monthly basis for at least the next 6 months, and then reevaluate at that point to see if we need to continue at a monthly basis.
I second that.
So all in favor, all opposed?
Okay, all in
So
favor?
that's for you to say.
Yes, it's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next item is the identify the month for annual report to the council.
Yes, so the board is supposed to report to council on their annual activities, on their activities annually. That did not happen last year. So the last sheet in your packet is the list of the city council meeting schedule. So if the board would like to discuss when would be appropriate, obviously it's January now, so later in the year, I would imagine maybe November or December. But that's, for your discussion.
So we're not going to deliver a report for 2020? We're just going to, seems like to me, even though we're late, we should still go back and...
Okay, yeah, that was discussed at the last meeting, and then I didn't hear from the board about that. So that did not happen. I suppose we could still schedule a meeting. You could still request an agenda item or come to the meeting, or I would figure out how to arrange that if you'd like to make a report for the previous
For the
year.
20, yes, so we find a date to have a meeting schedule for the 2020, and then one more for 2021, correct?
I believe that I could make that happen, yes.
So I guess my question would be, if we don't change the frequency of the meetings, which is up to council, our next meeting wouldn't be until when?
April.
And then at that point, we're talking about 2020 when we're almost halfway through 2021. So, I mean, I'm good with going back to 2020. I think that's a good idea, but I think that has to happen soon rather than later. Otherwise, I don't see the point.
Yes,
If I may, the next time the council will be discussing this I will take your motion to the next council meeting, or perhaps, Mr. Hallios will, to the next council meeting that we can get on the agenda for, which might be late February, early March.
Yeah, probably. There's the work session on the 16th and the council meeting on the 18th, so I would,
I think they're gonna discuss all of the boards at the same time. So in March, there'll be more board meetings that haven't met January, February, March.
I understand.
So it'll.
they want to address them all at the same time, I believe. So after the first quarter, right, Pat, after all the boards meet, I think council then wanted to have a more robust discussion on maybe frequency of meetings, roles of board, things of that nature. So, you may want to look to do your report sometime post that meeting,
After that meeting.
after that meeting.
after that one.
So the motion that the board would like to have for at least 6 months, have monthly meetings, that will go before council in March.
March.
They have their
Or after all of the boards have had their first quarter meeting. So that may not be until late March. Yes.
I'm looking at my calendar. I think it's March 10th. I think
There's a
March 10th is the last meeting of the advisory boards for the quarter.
You could look at the 18th, the council meeting on the 18th.
And then there's the council meets on the 15th and the 18th.
I guess my concern is that every board could have a different frequency. They can decide what their own frequency is. So is council going to, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Councilman Beckmann, but is council going to say, okay, everybody's going to meet quarterly now, even so we want to meet frequently? I just don't know why council can't discuss us at their next meeting rather than waiting until March. And maybe that's just being greedy, but
I think it's because council wants to discuss all of the boards and all of the rules and not the rules and regulations, but what the responsibilities are of each of the board. Discuss, maybe they want to combine boards. There are many.
So, Councilman Beckmann, and I don't want to put you on the spot again, but do you think you could add this to the agenda? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think you see where I'm coming from.
I do see it, and I don't know if I kind of hear like our city attorney Pam Aiken, like, what are you functioning as up there, a council member or a resident? So Jim, you can cut me off if you need to, if I pass the buck, but I would say, I don't think there's any way all the boards would be meeting at the same intervals, because you all have different, subjects that you're dealing with, and code enforcement, or, the nuisance abatement, or the Marine Advisory Board. I think they're all gonna be individual. And to me, it seems reasonable to ask for us to weigh in on your request at our next meeting. I mean, I don't see that as a problem, but that's just me.
Yeah, I can also speak to, I think, speaking to what Councilwoman Beckman said, the genesis of the discussion is to, how often is the meeting necessitated? So for your role, it might be necessitated to have a monthly meeting. Now, there might be other advisory boards that they're fine meeting on a quarterly basis because the information that they deal with is, like we talk about a couple different things, the landings and Imagine Clearwater, how the momentum that takes place when we deal with these things, it moves quick. So in order to be able to give you as a board input in time to review things and maybe make comments, and have a dialogue back and forth with each other and with staff, maybe meeting on a monthly basis allows you more flexibility to do that. So I think that's, those types of things will be considered. And, when I have the city manager, I'm sure will ask me about my opinion on the frequency on it, and that'll be my answer to him, is that, if we look at your roles as defined earlier, we're talking about certain duties and responsibilities, and if we want you to be more engaged in those duties and responsibilities, then maybe it does necessitate an increase in the frequency of your meetings. So, I wouldn't, don't look at it as it being in a vacuum. I think it's gonna be addressed individually, but, I can definitely ask the clerk about bringing it to the next meeting as far as, increasing your frequency. Now, she may have direction from the manager and the council that they wanna wait on that, but there's no harm in us asking, and we don't have an issue doing it.
I guess that brings me back to then the annual report. I think we need to table that for now because we don't know when we're going to meet again. So there's no sense of saying we're going to talk about this next month or even in April if we don't know that that's our next meeting. So if we meet next month, we could discuss it next month or, March. I guess it would be March because the next council meeting is not until February. So even if they do allow us to go to a monthly meeting, that wouldn't take place until probably March. So my opinion is to table it.
I have a question. Can the 2020 and the 2021 report be done at the same time, one after the other? To
Yes.
get both of them out of the way instead of
And
having to wait, push it?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
guess my question earlier, and I've looked at this now, there's no requirement by ordinance that we report annually, that we just have to report. But it's not our duty to report annually. It's just been historically, that's what this board has done.
I would have to check that in the ordinances. Pat, what do you?
It's something that they've started the last few years, these annual reports. They
It
have done
it doesn't sound like there's
so
any
it's not in place.
consequence of not doing so, but I would expect that if the council is going to be discussing your meeting frequency in March, that from your April meeting onwards, if you're requesting to meet monthly, I would say that it's fairly likely that you're going to start meeting, you're going to have your April meeting, and then you're going to meet monthly after that. Although that's up to council, but I would not be surprised if that's what happens.
Well, I would then make a motion to table the annual report for right now to see where this board is headed in the next few months.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. And moving on then to discuss the future of the landings.
This item was requested by board member Patrick Raftery, who is unable to be with us this evening. There was also an item that a member of the public emailed the clerk, that was the Swift Mud permit allowing the golf course to get a new reclaimed water permit, which they were able to get. As I believe everybody here knows, that there was a referendum to change the use of the golf course that was not successful. So I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what Mr. Raftery had wanted to speak about on this item today. But I do know, and I don't know, Jim, you want to speak on that? Okay.
Yep, Jim Halios, Parks and Rec Director. Just to provide an update on, the status of the Landings property as we're looking at it now and how we have it set in our master plan is, I believe the lease has either 7 or 9 more years on that. I'll have to check. But, the approach now is that it's going to stay as a golf course. They're making the improvements that they need to make as part of their lease to hook up to the reclaimed water system and to be able to irrigate. So they're making the improvements that were negotiated in their lease with the intention on staying there and staying active as they are. And as we mentioned earlier, the master planning process is going to be coming up again this year. We're looking to bring on some consultants, and again, we will engage with the Parks and Rec Board. You will be heavily involved in the master planning process, and part of that master planning process will be to identify, from our perspective, when I say our, I mean the Parks and Recreation perspective, your perspective, the citizen perspective, what the ultimate use is or disposition of that property, whether it stays a golf course, whether it becomes something else from a park standpoint. So we will, kind of have that discussion then as far as how we look at it from that standpoint, but from a city standpoint, as far as Parks and Recreation, it is stay in a golf course. We haven't made any movement to do anything with the lease. You know, our intention is for the leasee to stay and fulfill their lease, and they seem happy to do that, and they have the ability to, there was some concern on their part with their ability to hook into the reclaimed water was going to be quite costly for them. But they've been able to work with our engineering department and also Swift Mud to come up with some, I don't want to say different ways of doing it, but a more cost feasible way to hook into the reclaimed water system that would meet the Swift Mud permit. So, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that.
So at the moment, it's staying as is, they're gonna
Yep.
continually, so it's pretty good. One thing I just wanna note that recently, I've had some friends looking into homes, and as soon as the home goes on the market, within 2 hours to 4 days, it's gone. And considering what the situation is in the rest of the country, Clearwater's becoming a very, very prime destination. And I'm glad that the landing could still remain, because I think the greenery that we have in the city is now is turning into a very high premium. And because so many people come to Clearwater because it's a great place to live and to enjoy, I think the parks that we have are amazing, and I think conserving that for the future generations, because sooner or later, I mean, this place, any little spot is going to be sold for development, which helps the city, but then for the citizens, like you were saying, one gentleman's daughter can't even walk to the closest park. Meanwhile, years ago, was it a park? So preserving the greenery we have is really important. That's what I mentioned in the last meeting. That's really important to me. And now we're seeing how evident it is, where properties are becoming that much more valuable, and so is the greenery that we have around us. So I think it's precious, and I'm glad we can continue there. So you said in 7 or 8 years the lease is up, but between there, I guess we can work out some kind of future, some kind of, I guess, use for it if
Yeah,
they
I
decide
think
to stay or not.
What would be ideal is for us to identify in the master plan and, you know, going forward in the next 10 years that, okay, we see this property coming up off a lease within that 10-year period. What do we see that being used as? And how that'll be defined is based on a needs assessment that we do with the community. So we'll engage with the community, and as Mr. Rector said, he looked at the last master plan, and in there they have rankings of what the needs are. So, you know, I can tell you that I think that had been designated for, if ever possible, for more athletic fields. Now, in that 10-year time, that might have been what was needed. But, you know, going into this next 10-year period, the priority level on that could change, and it could shift up, and maybe it's a passive park or whatever it is. Maybe it stays a golf course. But we'll look to engage with yourself and the community to find out what those needs are, and then, you know, we can identify that as what would be put in that place once that lease expires. Because in the last master plan, we really didn't identify that because it was going to be leased all the way through. So there was no mechanism for us or momentum to do anything with it. But now that we'll have an opportunity.
And it actually said at the time you need more golf courses.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I would also point out that if were it to ever change from the open space recreation zoning that it currently has, it would still have to go through another referendum.
Yeah, good point.
Well, I'm excited for this year. I mean, we got spring training possibly coming up, and the beaches again. I mean, and then COVID, have to weather that. So our Parks Department is going to have their hands full. It's going to be an interesting year. All right.
Do you want to ask for any public comment before we move on?
Yes, any public comment? Yes.
Kathleen Beckmann again, Clearwater Council, as well as a proud resident. So in speaking about the landings, I appreciate your conversation. I just wanted to show you this. So this is oh, look at it, shows up very nicely on there. So this is a map of our parklands and Parks and Rec properties that Mr. Halios and his fantastic team are in charge of. And they are color-coded with community parks, environmental parks, neighborhood parks, open space parks, special facilities. And I would hope that, and I can send you this, you know, this diagram as well as the key, but I would hope that you're familiar with it. And that, you know, you can see that, you know, there are neighborhood parks that are yellow, that, you know, there aren't a whole lot here in this quadrant or this area here, that this green space here is actually Sand Key Park, which is part of the county. And we have, you know, the beach here and the causeway, and then we have this out here, east of 19. So anyway, you get kind of a visual of where the parks are, how accessible they are, the rec centers, golf courses. It really gives you, you know, more of a true picture of what we have for our residents and where we have it. And one thing I would just say is, you know, the Landings is a 77-acre piece of property. 61% of the people who voted no on the Landings. And this was, you know, kind of a bipartisan issue, I believe. You know, I volunteered at the election site a lot as people came in and out, and I think it's people just value their environment, and the quality of life has to do with the green space that they see around them or that's accessible. Let's see, do I have one more thing? It's like, I was going to say that I was talking about, I know, the whole slogan. Clearwater is a great place to live, work, and play. And what sticks to me is, this isn't where we play, and this isn't where we work, and this isn't where we live. We live everywhere. And so people who live in our city need to have a place to play and enjoy where they live. It's not a big segregated 3 parts of our city. Oh, we go to the beach, we got the #1 beach in the country, that's where we go and play. But the people who live in the center and pay taxes, yeah, that's where they work. And, you know, over here is whatever. It needs to be incorporated throughout. And that's my belief. And when we think about what we're doing with the Landings and giving up that big piece of green space in the middle of the city, that's what we need to consider. So if you would like this, I'll make it, you reach out to me. We can develop a relationship, and I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments, or I guess we'll move forward to a next item, election of officers. Yes, Ms. Lee.
So, Pat, there is a quorum, so we will still have your election, correct?
Right, we need to take nominations for chair.
Yes, so just to remind you how this works, someone will nominate and then second, first for chair and then for vice chair as well, and then it's a majority, and then there's vote, so.
I'll nominate Bruce Rector for chair.
Second.
So then you all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, and then vice chair.
Might say, Mr. Chairman, what I said earlier, I really intend as chair to fully engage everyone on the board, and we'll work very hard for the board to make sure that we're doing that.
I'm excited. I mean, it's great. I'm really excited for everything. And I mean, like Councilman Beckmann said, we live here by choice. This is amazing. We get to live here every single day because we want to. And most of the world comes here to visit, and they're amazed. And here we get to see this every single day. So I'm looking forward to seeing all the work we can do going forward. And
So we need a vice chair?
yep, the vice chair. Anyone nominees for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mark Rodriguez.
I'll second that.
Vice.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, see, we have no old business items at the moment. Director's report.
Good evening again, Jim Halios, Parks and Recreation Director. The 2 things that I kind of wanted to report on to you tonight are projects that we have that are coming to fruition, coming to an end. So Crest Lake, we're looking at a end of February, early March substantial completion on that. There'll be some elements of the park that are not completed by then, most notably like the spray park, things of that nature where it's not really going to be used in February. So we're hoping, April, May-ish to have that completed, but it'll be more than 90% completed. We're very excited about that. The dog park is getting a lot of use, and the council has approved 3 FTEs to manage that park, so the park will have an active staff presence we're working out timeframes on what the staff will be there, but, having a restroom facility at a park like that really does make it a regional park, but it also increases the need for having staff there, pretty much the whole time. So that we're going to dictate how we do our operational hours kind of based on usage and everything. But again, it's going to take a little bit of time. We're not doing a grand opening. It's going to be a virtual grand opening just because of COVID, because that would be one where we would encourage the Parks and Rec Board to come out. But we'll have to maybe try to do that again sometime when we get into a little better state of affairs. The second item would be the Barefoot Beach House, and that it'll be completed by spring break. The issue with that, it's FEMA does not allow us to make any more improvements than the half of the value of the property because it's in the floodplain. So this has been, I want 3-4 years, Mike, something like that. I'm trying to think, because when I left to go over to the city manager's office, when I used to be the port liaison here, that we were still working on it, and we had done some things over there. So this, I think, will be the final completion. So Barefoot Beach House the restrooms will be renovated and completed, and that'll be done in time for spring break. I was speaking to board member Rector. The other thing that we have coming up is the Super Bowl, as you know, is in Tampa. We usually have a lot of events on the beach, but this year the only thing we have is a celebrity flag football tournament. It's actually, believe it or not, closed to the public. It's going to be shown, I believe, ESPN Plus or one of those platforms. And so they're in a bubble. They're coming out there and doing that. But that's really the only thing that we have event-wise. I don't know if you saw that the Blues Fest has been canceled for February. Now, we did take an item to council last week, which will allow us to look at some different opportunities for co-sponsored events for this year, maybe moving forward. That will allow us to kind of augment what we've done in the past, just because we've had a rash of cancelizations. So to be able to bring something back that will fit into kind of the new COVID protocols that we have for the public to engage with, that's one thing that we're looking at. And then to speak to spring training, we haven't really had any direction from the Phillies or Major League Baseball as to a definitive date, but what we have heard is that, most likely looking at about 25% occupancy, something of that nature. There was actually an article in the paper today, I don't know if anyone read it, that Arizona is actually asking Major League Baseball to postpone spring training for a month due to their COVID outbreak. So who knows what that'll lead to, but we haven't had any feedback that there's a need for that on our end. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Coachman Park, the work that's being done there, what's the forecast or projection for that limit use of the park over the next 6 months or so with things that are being done in there?
Sure. We're actually taking an item to the council next month to kind of basically get the guaranteed maximum price on what the project's going to cost. And so after that, I believe mobilization could be anywhere from 30 to 60 days. As you see now, the trailers are out there, and what the work that's being done is actually Duke is out there, and some of the other utilities are doing utility work, moving things of that nature, their utilities. So we're hoping that after that, next month, we bring that item to council and we have some direction and approval from them to move forward. Then hopefully looking after that anywhere from a 30 to 60, 90-day period to break ground. But as of right now, we haven't been permitted anything in the park, and it's effectively closed just because of the nature of the work that's ongoing there right now.
Anyone else? All right, and I guess with no one else to be heard, I move to adjourn.
Board members to be heard?
Yes. Any board members?
I have something.
Yes, please.
Actually, I've been approached by a few residents regarding the hours of McMullen Tennis Complex, and I believe it was early last year that they changed the hours due to COVID. And they're still the same, but I'm wondering if there's a schedule of when those hours might change back. I believe they're closed between around noon and 4. And it used to be a prime time for drop-ins and clinics. And now between that time period, the courts are not being used at all. So just wondering if there's a timeline when they might go back to the previous hours.
Yeah, we can look into that for you. I'll have to admit on that one, I'm not totally sure when that occurred and what the genesis of that change was. And like you said, it may be from COVID, so I
Okay.
will check with them to find out, and we can get back to you.
Thank you very much.
And we can certainly get a response to that and email it to the board before April. So we'll have to wait till the
Yeah,
next meeting.
we'll get you something next week, probably.
Send you an email, hopefully, or maybe even by the end of this week,
Yeah.
as soon as we have a good answer for you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank
Another
you.
thing I'd like to say is I agree with a lot of what Ms. Beckmann said as far as input from the board, and I personally would like to be able to provide that information to everybody. And I think, like Mark, I was, a big learning curve too, because it's the first time that I've been on a board. But I do have a strong ties with the tennis community because of my business and my background. So just personally would like to work on doing better in the future.
I think we all want to do better. That's what we're here for. Like I said, we love being, I'm excited to see everybody here again, and I'm excited for what we can do this year. And it's just a great opportunity for all of us. And yeah, it is a learning curve. We're not professionals. We're literally amateurs doing this, trying to be here for the citizens. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being able to participate, and I look forward to what we do going forward. So if anyone else,
Mr. Chair, I think I said this last time, but I wanted to really compliment our Parks and Recreation staff again. During this past 9 months, we've had a very different visitor, particularly to the beach, a messier visitor. And our Parks and Recreation staff, I see them out there on Sundays and working all weekend to make sure that maybe some visitors who are not as environmentally friendly as they should be, that they're helping pick up after them and make sure that our beaches are clean and safe for our environment, even on the weekends. And they've gone to great lengths to make an extra effort to make all of our parks look nice over this last 9 to 12 months when they've had heavier use. And I want to thank the Parks and Recreation staff for doing that.
Oh, we appreciate you acknowledging that, and, they are unsung heroes out there. Rain or shine, 365 days a year, those guys are out there maintaining that beach, and, they will appreciate those words of recognition, so I thank you.
I appreciate it. I think someone served on the Citizens Academy, and we did see what the departments do here in this city, and like I say, I'm fascinated every single day of what the city still is capable of doing, even with the hiccups we had last year and moving forward. So definitely like to commend everyone in every department. Thank you. All right, anyone else like to be heard? Okay, then I will move to adjourn.